What is going on, guys? Brewer here, back again with another video, and today we're going to be spending some time together reflecting on the past. I'm going to be looking back at 2018 when I found my very first six-figure product and all the different things that I learned and all the things that I took away that are still implementable and still relevant to this day. So yes, this was pretty much 4 years ago now. Early 2018 is when I scaled my very first store to $100,000, and I have to say, guys, I learned some incredibly valuable lessons, not only on the micro level with Facebook ads and specific strategies and things that you need to do, but also on a macro level in terms of like running an actual business and all the things that you need to do. And there's also a couple tips in here of things that I learned, on the stores after that and things that I kept on learning and reflecting back. Some lessons you learn in the moment, but you don't realize that you're learning that lesson until in the future. They may not be things that you're going to be able to implement like today with your advertising. It's not like a specific strategy thing. It's more of an overall mindset and way of thinking, essentially, for dropshipping stores. And it pretty much lays the foundations for what's allowed me to scale to multi-8 figures over the past 4 or 5 years. So let's bring it back all the way back to 2018. And let's take a look at the first product that I personally scaled to 6 figures. So you can see it on the screen, these ugly, terrible Oxford shoes. Now, obviously this product is no longer selling on any of the stores that I run marketing for or anything like that. I stopped selling these, and there's multiple reasons for that. But this store ended up making way more money than this, but at least this is what it made while I was managing it. So you can see that we were buying the product for about $10 and selling it for about $30. So the margin was pretty damn good. And our Facebook ad spend approximately was about $120,000. This was over like 3 to 4 months, and the revenue that was generated was $260,000 to $300,000. Like I said, this is like 4 years ago, so I'm not 100% sure on the exact figures, but we were getting like a 2.5 to 3 ROAS, and we spent about $100,000 to $130,000 on ads. So you can do the math. I mean, the total profit was probably between $60,000 and $80,000 during the time that I was working on it. So what I did was I spent a couple hours just kind of reflecting, and I also went back on previous notes that I used to take, just day to day running my business on things that I was learning, and I wrote down this big list of lessons. So I'm going to basically be having a small conversation with you about each lesson that I learned, what it taught me, and how you can implement it in your business today. So the number one thing that I want to note is that this was not my first winning product. It usually isn't people's first winning products where they test it and then go off and do 6 figures. Usually the first one, you'll do like 20, 30, maybe 40K, and then you fuck up and you screw it all up. Honestly, that's what happens with most people. That's exactly what happened with me. I took a product to about $25,000 in revenue, and we spent about $15,000 on ads. So it was pretty much breaking even the whole time. So we ended up just turning it off. And this was actually the second winning product that I saw. It was the first one that I took to 6 figures, but the second winning product. One thing worth noting is that I implemented the same exact strategy on store number 1 that I did with store number 2. So keep this in mind. The only difference between the 2 winning products was how good the product sold, which I wouldn't say is 100% in my control because I built both stores. I did the ads for both of them. Like they were similar enough to where, you can't really pinpoint, okay, this one worked because of this and that one worked because of this. It's very hard to pinpoint what exactly made them work. So the only difference was the product. So you could say that if you implement an amazing strategy on a really good product, of course you're going to make a lot of money, but you can still implement a really good strategy on a bad selling product and it's still not going to sell that great. And I think that was the first lesson that I took from this. And also another lesson that ties into this one is just trusting the process. It would have been very easy for me after scaling that first store and just breaking even to just completely change my strategy and lose faith in the system I was using at the time. However, I decided to stick it through and see what would happen if I kept on following the same strategy with different products, and sure enough, the strategy worked. I just wasn't doing it on a good enough product the first time around. So that's lesson number 1. If you're following a proven strategy, trust the process even if it's not bringing you the exact results that you want it to right now, because it could just be the product, it could just be something that's not necessarily in your full control. And I think it's best that if you know that the strategy that you're following is proven, to just stick with it and see it through. The next lesson that I learned is that sales do not mean shit. With the first store I grew, it was 25K with 15K in revenue. I was feeling good, but my bank account wasn't really feeling good. It was breaking even. It wasn't really doing anything. And that's where this comes from, right? Because once I started seeing a store that was actually profitable, I started to realize very quickly that the number one way that you're actually able to hit big numbers in this industry is if you're making real profits. It doesn't matter if you're doing $20,000 a day in sales. If you're only profiting $500 on $20,000, I mean, you get a 1% chargeback rate and you're pretty much done. Like, you're gonna have no profits after that. You wanna be in the situation where where you're doing as little revenue as possible and as most profits as possible, as opposed to being in a situation with the most revenue possible and a very, very small amount of profit possible. Ideally, you're somewhere in the middle. You know, you have high revenue, low profit, and low revenue, high profit. You can be somewhere in the middle where you have like decent profits, 15 to 30%, somewhere between there, and you're still pushing high enough volume to where it's worth it and totally scalable. And another thing that ties into this is when you're actually managing your advertisements, it's important to know that cost per purchase and return on ad spend are the most important things. Like, they're literally king. If you're looking at anything else inside of your ad account and you haven't figured it out yet, you're wrong. The number one thing that matters is cost per purchase and return on ad spend. And if you're not focused on those two things and you're looking at, CPMs, cost per click, whatever, you're pretty much focused on the wrong thing. You're gonna get the wrong results. Another thing that I took away from this store that was really, really valuable, that might be helpful for you to hear, is just believing that this is something that I can go all into and it's gonna get me to where I wanna be in life. Because up until the point that you actually start making money, you're pretty much just hoping that it works out. And you're basically hustling, putting on all this work and all these hours and losing money, hoping that it's gonna work out. And it's not until you actually see it make money for yourself that you really get convicted and committed to what you're doing. So that's one of the most valuable things that this did for me, was actually seeing real money come in, like $300, $500 profit per day. And I was like, holy shit, this actually fucking works. I'm about to commit my whole life to figuring this game out. Finding your first winning product and seeing that first little bit of profit is so important to your success, even if you don't make any money, literally just because it shows you that it's possible. It removes faith from the process and it replaces it with conviction, right? Like, you're no longer crossing your fingers and now you saw that it made money and you have full conviction and you can go full force ahead. You're no longer guessing. So I guess the lesson that I have in this is, in the beginning, you need to have faith. You need to push through and believe that you can make it happen. But you need to hustle your fucking ass off to see your first little bit of success, because if you don't, you're probably gonna end up losing that faith and quitting. The next one that I would like to go into is product quality. Now, I don't like to admit it, but the quality of the shoe was pretty bad. Like, it was really terrible. We had to switch suppliers multiple times. One supplier smelt bad, the other supplier had the wrong sizing. We ran into chargebacks, returns, tons of customer service. Like, maybe 10 to 15% of orders that we had were turned into a customer support ticket like within a week or two. The percentages were horrible, and keep in mind, this was my first time scaling a store, so this was like a big wake-up call for me. Like, selling shoes as your first winning product is probably the worst product that you could sell as your first winning product, because you on top of all the other bullshit that you deal with, you also have sizing. So we were dealing with a bunch of this, and this is what introduced me to sizing charts and all these things. But obviously, when scaling, it's good to verify the quality of your product. Like, at least order it to your house so that you can see. And if you can't order it from China, or you don't want to wait a month, try to find it on Amazon or Amazon Prime, just so that you can see the product for yourself. Make sure it works, make sure that it does what you're saying it does. Make sure, if it's a product that has sizing, make sure it fits properly compared to other sizes, whatever. I just want to say product quality matters, and this was a big lesson that I took away from my first six-figure store. This one's a quick one, and basically the lesson is just get your shit together. When you're just testing products and you haven't seen success before, you're not fucking worried about customer support, you're not worried about, cross-selling, branding your store, or doing one product stores, putting in the extra effort, whatever, because you can't see how it's going to portray, in a month or two, or how it's going to translate into more money down the road. Doing back-end automation such as email marketing, whatever, setting up retargeting once you have a winning product. Like, when you're just testing, you're not going to be thinking about these things. And when you get hit with that 4 or 5 ROAS, it feels like your bank account just got hit by a truck with all this money and these e-commerce profits. You're probably also not going to be thinking about these things. You're going to be running up to mom and being like, Mom, look, I did $1,000 a day today. You're not going to be looking at, your customer support systems. You're not going to be looking at how you're cross-selling your customers to try to make more money, or your email marketing. So the lesson for this one is basically, once you find a winning product, get your shit together as soon as possible. Like, figure everything out that you're going to have to figure out, and don't stop hustling just because you hit $1,000 a day or 10K a day, whatever the number is for you, where you start getting complacent and forgetting about this stuff. Get your shit together. The next lesson, which is one that I keep on repeating over and over and over again on this channel and really everywhere that I go, is essentially follow the strategy. Everybody has a strategy or an idea of what they're doing, but this was my first time having a strategy and actually having an idea of what I was doing, in terms of like what I was doing on the day-to-day to progress the advertising and scale and test different ads and whatnot. I had a routine, right? I had a strategy that I was following, and I followed it like my life depended on it. And the reason I did this is because my mentor told me to, and I was basically just letting myself be a muppet, which was great because I didn't have to think about it much and I could just do what he told me and cross my fingers. But I had faith and I followed this strategy. Like literally, if I did something wrong, I was gonna die, right? Like I literally did it like life or death. Some could argue, had I diverted from the strategy, in one way or another, maybe we could have scaled higher. Maybe we could have made more money or done higher revenue or higher profits or whatever. The point is, we stuck to what we knew worked and we still did 260K in 3 months. So I think looking back, obviously with what I know now, of course we could have scaled quicker. Of course we could have made more money. But back in the day, it was my first store and I think I executed it very, very well. And the lesson to take away from this is like stick to what works. Like until you're willing to lose what you've built up to this point, just stick to what you know works, make your money. And then when you start flipping winning products and scaling stores like on a weekly basis, that's when you can start diverting from what you know works and start experimenting with new strategies and new things to do. But up until then, stick to what works, make your money, get your money in the door, so you don't have to worry about money that much anymore. And then once you're there, you can start diverting and looking for ways to make it better. The next lesson that I learned is that replication is key. The thing that really made me excited when I found this first six-figure store was not the fact that I built my first six-figure store. No, not at all. I mean, that was cool and all, but the thing that really, really excited me was the fact that I knew that what I did on this one store was replicatable amongst many different stores. So I knew that I didn't just get lucky. I didn't just have, some random product that, is one of a kind or anything like that. I literally just implemented these strategies that are 100% replicable onto this store and it worked. So the thing that really got me going and got me excited about all this was the fact that I knew that I could start another store, do the exact same things and do it again. So I wasn't looking at the 100K like, wow, that, 100,000, whatever. I was looking at other stores like, holy shit, I now have this skill and this ability to replicate this strategy amongst many different stores. And that's what really made me excited. So of course I took on another store. Literally the third store I took on, the third winning product that I had, I scaled to $560,000 in sales in 3 months. Literally took it to $5,000 per day in 2 weeks from the time that I took it on. So yes, you heard that right. The first winning product I had, I did 25K, just broke even the whole time. Second one, we did about 260K with like 30% margins. Third one, we did 560,000 in 3 months, right? Like that's a massive scalability. And that's why I was so excited to find this first six-figure store, is because I knew that I was gonna be able to replicate it amongst store after store after store. And those 3 were literally just the fucking beginning. Like I've scaled hundreds of stores since then. And obviously 4 years later, if you kept up to date with my channel and my results and whatnot, you would know that I've generated well over $20 million in sales for all my clients by replicating this same exact strategy. And that's why I was so excited in the beginning, because I saw that vision. I saw how I could take this strategy, bring this first store to 6 figures or whatever, do it again and again and again. And eventually I even took a store to $1 million. I remember the first store that I grew to $1 million in sales. I was like, holy fuck, like that was a big moment for me. And you know what? If you want me to make a video on the lessons that I learned by taking my first store to $1 million in sales, leave a comment down below and let me know that you want to see that video. But yeah, since then I've scaled probably well over 50 stores in the 6-figure range, about 4 stores to over $1 million, 5 if you include one of the clients that I had who has already hit $1 million and we made him an extra like 2 to 3 million on top of that. So really I've managed, many millions worth of ad spend and had many millions worth of revenue as a direct result of this first 6-figure store. Had I never scaled this first store to 6 figures, I don't know if I would be where I'm at today. And basically the way that I've done it is I knew at the time that I had this scalable method that is completely replicable amongst many different stores, and I could pretty much find a winner on any store and scale it to wherever I wanted. So what I did was I basically found people and basically partnered with them on a profit share basis. Now I do flat rate up front plus profit share. So things have changed a little bit, but back then I would just take on a store, find them a winning product and scale them. And that's how I pretty much made all my money over the past 4 years, is literally just scaling people's stores. And usually I provide the products, I'll build the store, provide the ad creatives and run the advertising, test the products, analyze them, and then scale for you once a winning product is found. And by the way, if this is something that you may be interested in for yourself, because obviously I've scaled many people's stores just like you who are just starting out, can't find a winning product, whatever the reason is, we pretty much come in, do the work for you, and find a winning product on your store so that you can hit your goals. It's also a really great learning experience. If you're interested in something like that, feel free to schedule a call using the link in the description, and we'll be happy to talk to you and see if it's a good fit or something that you may want to do. So that's pretty much it for all the lessons lessons that I learned from my first six-figure store. I'm sure if I sat here for another, 6 hours, I could think of a few more that are also really valuable. And I also left out all of the micro, things that I learned with strategy and whatnot. These are just kind of the overview strategies that anybody can implement and take lessons from as well. So I hope this video is valuable for you. If it was, smash the like button. Let me know in the comment sections what you think. And of course, if you want me to make the video on the lessons that I learned from my first $1 million store, then leave that in the comments below as well, because I would love to create that video and go back on those times. I believe it was early 2019, late 2018 when that happened. So around the same time range, still 3-4 years ago. But I would love to reflect on those times and share what I learned from my first 7-figure store as well. Now, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. This is Noah Brewer, and I'm out. Peace.